Hi everybody, in today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 wonderful immigration options for startup companies. Let's say you're somebody that's looking to run a startup company in the United States and you want to know some immigration options that you could potentially qualify for. Well, that's exactly what we're going to go over in today's video, so make sure to stick around. Hi everyone, my name is Michael Ashoori and I'm a U.S. immigration lawyer based in Los Angeles, California. At my law firm, we work with clients from all 50 states and worldwide, and we regularly post videos to keep you up to date with the latest immigration news and to provide you with helpful immigration tips. So if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Also, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube knows to share this information with more people. So as I mentioned, in today's video, we're going to go over 3 wonderful immigration options for people that are looking to run a startup company in the United States. So if you have a good idea for a startup company in the United States and you want to better understand what sort of an immigration option you have to be able to run your startup company in the US, that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. I've put together a presentation going over 3 separate options. So take a look at my screen and we'll go through it together. So option number 1 is the E2 investor visa. And basically the E2 visa is a non-immigrant visa for investors and entrepreneurs. And through the E2 visa, someone can get a visa to live in the US and operate their business based on making a substantial investment in their business. So this is again a perfect option for startup companies because it allows somebody to invest in their business, and based on making that investment, they can live in the US and operate their business. So now let's go over some of the requirements for the E2 visa. First requirement is that you must have citizenship to a country that has an E2 treaty with the US. Now, not every country is eligible for an E2 visa. In order to qualify for an E2 visa, you have to have citizenship to a country that has an E2 treaty with the US. Now, there are many countries that have E2 treaties with the US, but there are some notable countries that do not have this treaty. So again, you want to make sure that you have citizenship to a country that has an E2 treaty with the US. Second requirement is that you must make a substantial investment in your business. Now, there's no dollar amount, there's no set dollar amount that's considered substantial. At our law firm, we recommend investments of at least $100,000, but investments for less than that can also get approved. The third requirement is that you must have the intent to depart the US once your E2 status ends. Fourth requirement is that your business must be an active for-profit business. You can't just invest in the stock market to qualify for an E2 visa. Your business must be some sort of an active business, like a restaurant or a cell phone repair shop or some other type of active business. Fifth requirement is that your business cannot be a marginal enterprise, meaning that this can't just be some type of a small business that just benefits you and just provides enough income for you. The sixth requirement is that you must be coming to the US to direct and develop your business. Your investment funds must come from a lawful source. Your investment funds can't come from some sort of money laundering or some sort of an illegal activity. The funds must be traced to some sort of a lawful source. And lastly, your funds must be at risk. What this means is that you can't just deposit money into your business's bank account and expect to get your E2 visa approved. You actually have to put those investment funds at risk. For example, by purchasing supplies, purchasing equipment, and making the necessary purchases for your business. So again, that's a big picture overview of the E2 visa and some of the requirements for the E2 visa. Now let's move on to our second option of today's presentation, which is the L1 visa, also called the L1 intracompany transferee visa. Again, this is option number 2. Now, the L1 visa allows a foreign company to transfer a manager, executive, or specialized knowledge worker to work for a related US company. So essentially, this visa option allows a foreign company to transfer certain workers to work for a related US company. Through the L1 visa, a foreign company can transfer a worker to establish a new office in the US. So this is one of the reasons why the L1 visa can be a great option for startup companies in the US. Because again, the L1 visa allows a foreign company to transfer a foreign worker to establish a new office. Even if this is a brand new business, it could also potentially qualify for an L1 visa. So let's talk about some of the requirements for the L1 visa. The first requirement is that there must be some sort of a qualifying relationship between the foreign company and the US company. These just can't be two totally separate companies. There must be some sort of a relationship between the two companies. For example, the US company can be a branch office of the foreign company, or the companies can be parent subsidiary of one another, or the companies can be affiliates of one another, but there must be some sort of a qualifying relationship. The second requirement is that the employee that is coming to work in the US must have been continuously employed by the foreign company full-time for at least 1 year within the last 3 years prior to filing the L1 petition. So there's a few different things going on here. There must have been full-time employment with the foreign employer. That employment must have lasted for at least 1 year full-time within the last 3 years prior to filing the L1 petition. And that employment must have been continuous employment. Now, the third requirement is that the employment with the foreign company must have been as a manager, executive, or specialized knowledge worker. Now, again, it's important what the role was with the foreign employer. You can't just have worked in any role. The role must have been either as a manager, executive, or specialized knowledge worker. And the fourth requirement is that the prospective employment with the US company must also be as either a manager, executive, or specialized knowledge worker. So that is a big picture overview of the L1 visa. Now let's move on to our third and final immigration option of today's presentation, which is option number 3, the International Entrepreneur Parole Program. Now, what is the International Entrepreneur Parole Program? This is a special rule that allows the Department of Homeland Security to use its parole authority to grant a period of authorized stay to foreign entrepreneurs on a case-by-case basis who demonstrate that their status in the U.S. would provide a significant public benefit. Through the International Entrepreneur Parole Program, an entrepreneur who satisfies the requirements can come to the US and be eligible to work for their startup business in the US. So as you can see, this is a phenomenal option for startup companies. Now let's go through some of the requirements to qualify for the International Entrepreneur Parole Program. Requirement number 1, the entrepreneur must own at least 10% of the business. So to qualify for this program, you can't just be an employee of the business. You actually must own at least 10% of the business. Second requirement, the entrepreneur must have an active role in the operations of the business. You can't just be a passive investor. You must have an active role in the operations of this business. The third requirement, the startup company must have been formed within the last 5 years. So this actually must be a startup company. If this company was formed 20 years ago, it's not eligible for this program. The company must have been formed within the last 5 years. Requirement number 4, the startup must have substantial and demonstrated potential for rapid business growth and job creation. Now you might be wondering, what does that mean? How do I show that my business has substantial and demonstrated potential for rapid business growth and job creation? Well, I'll explain that right now. So this slide is all about how to show that the startup has substantial and demonstrated potential for rapid business growth and job creation. And one way is to show significant investment, at least $264,147 from qualified U.S. investors with an established track record. Another way is to show significant awards or grants, at least $105,659 from federal, state, or local government agencies. Or option number 3, you partially meet either or both of the previous requirements and can show other reliable and compelling evidence, such as being admitted to a competitive startup accelerator. So there you have it. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Just to do a quick recap, we talked about 3 separate immigration options for people that are looking to run a startup company in the United States. We talked about the E2 investor visa, which is for somebody to invest in their business in the United States, and based on that investment, they can operate their business. We talked about the L1 visa, which is for a foreign company to transfer a manager, an executive, or a specialized knowledge worker to come and work for a related company in the United States. And again, as we mentioned, that company in the United States can be a new company. And lastly, we talked about the International Entrepreneur Parole Program, which allows startup founders and entrepreneurs to be able to come to the United States on a period of authorized stay to grow their startup company in the US. I hope you learned a lot from this video. If you know anybody that can benefit from this information, please feel free to share this video with them. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the next video.